Hello and welcome to Nick's Vision to Hear. As the title insists, we Gen Xers had freedom as teenagers, so why do we need support workers in middle age for those who have disabilities? I'm going to give you a history lesson as to why there's now a rebellion happening amongst Gen X providers in disability service care. And it's starting to look very obvious that they're doing it. Let's explain how this works. To give you some history, I kind of know where all this came from. I was on the board of a disability service in the late 90s and early 2000s. I started as a consumer representative, which is a client of that service elected to the board of directors. I then became a fully fledged board member and stayed there for 12 years. So I've got skin in the game to be able to tell you exactly where the modern disability care user pay system came from. The baby boomers grew up in the institutional era. All the while, the ones that left school worked in that system as janitors, orderlies, whatever, because they got low-end jobs to work in the disability sector. The ones that stayed in university, particularly those born in probably the mid-50s, went through the education system in university in around the 70s. So they graduated just before what I call the integration era started in disability care, as the institutions were phased out for children to be admitted to them. So the integration era is what these baby boomer teachers in the disability sector worked in. So here's what happened. The baby boomers in the halls of power in the 2000s wanted to create an institution without walls system because the Gen Xers grew up in an education system whereby they had integration. But their aim wasn't Gen X, it was Gen Y. Let me explain why this is the case. We're talking the early to mid-2000s. What happened in the 2000s was the disability sector in Australia looked at a model called case-based funding. The money was attached to the person, not the agency. Cue the NDIS in the modern era. Now, it started originally in the disability employment sector under the School Leavers program. So this was designed around Gen Y. So Gen Y, born after 1980, did not know the integration era. They were too young. So what these baby boomers decided, who were in the halls of power, was to use them as essentially the guinea pigs for a user pay system for the disabled. So let's move into the modern era. The baby boomers created the NDIS and disability service networks around the world in a similar model to create an institution without walls because they saw no harm in that. The Gen X service providers now in disability care around the world in the private sector are trying to mirror the integration era into the modern system. So what they see is no branded vehicles, neat casual dress, no uniforms. Have you noticed that the main providers that are wanting the fully branded vehicles are Gen Y? The reason for that is because the integration era of making the disability integrated into the community rather than something being highlighted isn't something they grew up with. They grew up with the disability user pay system, which was privatized, but in not-for-profit privatization. So the government could still control the money inside the not-for-profit sector. Cue what we called in Australia the job network. There you go. That's exactly where all this came from. So now we start to piece together. Today, we see the Gen X provider who takes out a Gen X client or participant in the NDIS and tries to hide the branding of their business. They grew up in the integration era where the child was integrated into the mainstream. So the branding of vehicles that you see in disability services is actually a remnant of the old institution system in a modern era. So the NDIS was created to be an institution without walls. That's why you see a very big divide in the NDIS to do with the generations and how they run their businesses. I have predominantly Gen X providers. They don't brand themselves. They don't need to. They grew up in the integration era. So this is why we're seeing a little bit of a rebellion amongst the Gen X service providers to make it integratable rather than something that stands out like the proverbial. You enjoy your day. Hope this is a bit of a helpful video that you can sort of get something out of what's going on in the world of disability today. You enjoy your day. I'm Nick Pollock from Nick's Vision to Here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.